India has recently witnessed what is best described as a turmoil when it comes to relations with our neighbours. In Bangladesh, following widespread protests, their Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted. Pakistan and China have often been witnessed as taking an anti-India stand, and Nepal is another country that often witnesses leadership changes. As all of this goes on amongst India's neighbours, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim is on a two-day visit to India, offering the country a ray of hope. The visuals that you see on your screens now are of Turkish President Erdogan with former Pakistan PM Imran Khan and former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir, where they were alleged to have joined the Pakistan-China axis, which is not in India's favour. But now, as the Malaysian PM is visiting India, could this be referred to as a reset in ties between India and Malaysia? Well, there still remains speculations as to whether the issue of controversial Islamic preacher Zakir Naik, who remains wanted by investigative agencies of India on alleged charges of hate speech and money laundering, will be raised during this visit or not. Joining us at this point to discuss this further is Surinder Singh Lali, international affairs expert. Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, former diplomat, is live with us as well. Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director, India Foundation, joins us live. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is also live with us on the broadcast. Surinder Lali, let me begin with you first. What all is going to be on the agenda, according to you, during this visit?
Yes.
Surinder Lali, can you hear me? Okay, I think we've lost his connection there. Let me bring in Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee at this point, if she can hear me. Ambassador Mukherjee, this is a much expected visit. Do you believe a reset in ties is expected post this visit by the Malaysian Prime Minister?
Indeed, it's a very important visit. Let's not forget that Malaysia is going to be chairing the ASEAN next year. India has vital connections and connects with all the ASEAN countries. We have a partnership relationship. And in fact, the fact that the Malaysian Prime Minister is reaching out to us in this manner and is expected to ink various important agreements is of fundamental importance. We also have 2.75 million people of Indian origin in Malaysia. That's a sizable number in a small country like Malaysia. They play a very important role, in fact, in the Indo-Malaysian connect. And I would say actually that given the troubled situation, as you rightly pointed out, in our neighborhood, where we seem to be an oasis of peace surrounded by, if I may put it, islands of turbulence, it is to be hoped that the visit of the Malaysian Prime Minister would also send a powerful signal to our neighboring countries that we have important relations with the Muslim world, with Malaysia, with UAE, with Saudi Arabia, etc., etc., and that in fact Muslim countries look up to India for many things and look up to Prime Minister Modi for leadership for the South-South cooperation. We just had a very important South-South meeting day before yesterday. So therefore, I would attach high importance to this visit, given the fact that Anwar Ibrahim is going to be chairing ASEAN from 1st of January 2025.
Yes, let me also, in fact, quickly take that across to Major General Katoch. Major General Katoch, according to you, what is going to be top of the agenda during this meeting? Which aspects are likely to be discussed during the bilateral which will take place?
Well, thank you. I think there are two things, in my view, which will be discussed. One is the economic relationship between the two countries. And I think there will also be a talk on the regional dynamics. The region is going through turmoil now, especially what we have seen happening in Bangladesh, and also what is happening in West Asia as far as Israel and Hamas is concerned. So these two issues, I think, are going to be discussed. Not so much what is happening in Russia and Ukraine, but something closer to the region. Ambassador Mukherjee has already highlighted the aspect of ASEAN. I think that is going to be of great concern to India because that will come up in the discussion. And why I'm saying it's going to be of a lot of importance is our Act East policy now is actually facing a great deal of turbulence with what has happened in Bangladesh and what has happened in what is currently also happening in Myanmar. So I think there is a need to sort of keep all the partners as much as we can on board so that the Act East policy can continue smoothly despite the rough weather it is facing now. That is certainly going to be on the agenda. You had mentioned in the opening comments regarding Zakir Naik. I have a feeling that Zakir Naik is not likely to be a part of the discussion at this point of time. But even if it is a part of the discussion, I don't see Malaysia handing over Zakir Naik to India, especially given their own volatility of the situation in Malaysia. So I don't see the Malaysian Prime Minister doing that. But the point is that after Mahathir Mohamad, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim is a welcome breath of fresh air. Let me put it that way, and the relationship between the two countries will certainly improve. Let us also not forget that Malaysia has got much more to gain from India than what India has to gain from Malaysia. That point must be considered because India is still a very big country and a powerful neighbor, and it would be to Malaysia's interest to maintain good relationship. However, once it comes to wielding what we call the Islamic card, then we have seen how Malaysia has reacted earlier, especially in the dealings with Turkey and Pakistan, to make a particular axis against India. I think that particular axis which I'm referring to, I think that will stand reduced as of now. And as you had mentioned, is it a reset in relationship? Yes, I believe it is a reset, and it is for the good of both the countries. Back to you.
Professor Madhu Nalapath, come in here. Do we have reason to believe now that Malaysia is moving away from the China-Pakistan axis, Professor Nalapath, that it was in earlier?
Uday, I had the privilege of meeting Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad more than once before he was Prime Minister. I can confirm to you that he is a proud Malay, a proud Malaysian, and he's a complete patriot. And very importantly, he is committed to a multi-ethnic, multi-religious Malaysia. I can tell you that from the meetings I've had with him, the discussions I've had with him, I can personally confirm that. So I'd like to say that I don't think any of these apprehensions that he's like a kind of a closet Wahhabi or something, I think they're totally absurd. A lot of stories have been spread by Mahathir Mohamad about him. Mahathir Mohamad is a very ruthless politician, a very successful politician, and he went on a rampage against Anwar, and the people of Malaysia spoke. They rejected Mahathir and they chose Anwar. So the people of Malaysia, all ethnicities, all religious groups spoke in one voice in rejecting Mahathir and going in for Anwar. So I want to make that point absolutely clear. There has been some talk that Anwar Ibrahim, because he went to China, is pro-China. Again, I can tell you that is absolute nonsense. He is a complete Malaysian patriot. A complete patriot. He's, first of all, a proud Malay, a proud Malaysian, and he's a complete patriot. Yeah, he has no, he's certainly, then there also talk that he's beholden to India. Why? Because he has some Indian Malaysian friends and some friends in India. My goodness, if you add the Indian diaspora, we have about 1.5 billion people who are ethnic Indians. Do you mean to say that if you know, say, 5 or 10 or 20 or even more of these 1.5 billion Indians, you are supposed to be pro-India or an Indian, somebody who tilts towards India? Rubbish. Anwar Ibrahim does not tilt towards India. He does not tilt towards China. He has always remained firmly anchored to Malaysia. And I repeat, he's a patriot. But he's very good news with India. He has some very good Indian Malaysian friends. He has some friends in India as well. And I can confirm to you, any apprehension about him is not correct. He is making his visit here. And I can assure you that that visit is bound to be extremely productive and extremely satisfying when he meets Prime Minister Modi, when he meets External Affairs Jaishankar, those meetings are going to be extremely productive and very warm and cordial.
I have
Uday.
to ask you then, Professor Nalapur, do you expect the issue of Zakir Naik to come up in these talks, or is that going to be avoided?
Uday, let me tell you one thing. Zakir Naik is yesterday's story. Please go after tomorrow's story and prevent them from becoming today's story. Forget yesterday's story. We keep looking in the rearview mirror and we keep smashing our heads into all kinds of places. Look into the front. Look right across the windshield at the road ahead. Zakir Naik is yesterday's. If you want to create a fuss about Zakir Naik, you'll bring him back into existence. He is in the shadows now. Let him be there. Uday.
Surinder Lali, which way forward are Malaysia-India ties going to head post this visit? I don't know if you're there with us now, Surinder Lali, but if you can hear me, that
Yes.
question is for you.
Yes, I can. And Uday, thank you so much. Sorry for the glitch. You know, the most important aspects have been covered, but I want to park my point in precisely the South Asia perspective, because out of the 9 countries in South Asia, 4 of them are Muslim majority, especially Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Maldives. And if you look at the way, especially now, the way things have panned out in Bangladesh, and with our 4,000-kilometer porous border, there is a matter of concern, and so much so that it also influences our relationship with other, in the larger context with other Islamic nations, because we have 20% Muslims in India too. So my point in this is, I think this is definitely a step in the positive direction. And as Professor Nalapur said, that sometimes I feel that we give too much relevance to the Pannus and the Zakir Naiks. I mean, end of the day, these are all instruments that a lot of countries create, only sometimes to use as a negotiating tool. But I think it pretty much could be done and over with, because the geopolitical alliances, and especially in this part of the world, as I often say, that Cold War 2.0 is kind of in effect. So I feel that it's going to be very important. And for us, his visit from a country where 64% of the people are of Muslim origin has great optical value too, and not to mention, the geopolitical influences and also the trade. So I think so far so good.
Okay, let me in fact quickly take that now across to Professor Nalapur as well. Beg your pardon, Major General Katoch as well. Major General Katoch, let me quickly bring you in here on why this friendship with Malaysia is crucial for India. Why is it important to have good ties with Malaysia for India?
You see, there are two areas on either side of India which are Muslim majorities. When we are looking at West Asia, and we are also looking at ASEAN. Now, when we are looking at West Asia, India has really shored up its ties with the Islamic world, whether you look at Saudi Arabia or Iran or the other Muslim countries. And I think this has been a success story of India's diplomacy. Now, when you look at the ASEAN countries, the 2 major Muslim countries there are Indonesia and Malaysia. We've always had excellent relations with Indonesia, but with Malaysia, there was a blimp, especially when Mahathir Mohamad was there. Mr. Mohamad had his own concerns. I won't get into that. But now I think this reset is taking place, and with both Malaysia and Indonesia, being Muslim majority countries and having close ties with India, I think that is a very important step. It is important for India to be seen as, considering our own vast Muslim population, as being seen as a country which respects diversity and which respects all communities and all religions. And I think this outreach towards to Malaysia exemplifies that point. I do realize that in South Asia now we have a problem both with Pakistan and Bangladesh. Bangladesh, I feel, is a temporary problem. Pakistan is something more permanent that has got a different ideological base altogether. With Bangladesh, I presume that over a period of time, the present turmoil will be over and the reset will take place. But in this entire background, having the visit of the Malaysian Prime Minister, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, coming to India today and for the next 3 days he'll be here, I think it is very, very important, and it will be a reset as far as the relationship is concerned. Uday.
Yes, historically though, okay, Surinder Lali, yes, go ahead.
I just want to make one last point, because you see, Uday, the India today is not the India of the yesterdays, because India is a big, huge economy. India is very relevant, and if I can exceed my brief and say that today, if the globe and the global economy needs to prosper, India has to be part of the growth story because of obvious reasons. So, barring the Pakistanis and the Turkeys, I think even in every Muslim country, let's give the devil the due that they also know that they might have their Wahhabi and right-wing elements. But today, if any country has to grow, especially in this part of the world, you cannot ignore India because India is too big, too huge, and too important to not to be dealt with. I mean, that's my limited point.
Historically, though, how have India-Malaysia ties been? Let's give a historical perspective to the discussion as well now, Ambassador Mukherjee.
India-Malaysia ties have sometimes gone through rocky patches, depending on who is the Malaysian Prime Minister at the time. It is much more tricky to deal with Malaysia from an Indian perspective than to deal, for instance, with a country like Singapore, which is next door, for obvious reasons. However, I would agree with Professor Nalapat that it would appear that we have been able to overcome certain glitches which were evident even 2 years ago. And we have come to a point where the relations can be reset for a better takeoff. Don't forget, we have a free trade agreement with ASEAN since 2010, if I'm not mistaken. We have, in fact, a very vigorous partnership with ASEAN. It's a strategic partnership. Malaysia will be taking over in January. And we have actually, Professor Nalapat, I wanted to tell you that according to the figures, we have 2.75 million people or PIOs in Malaysia. That's the exact figure that I was just able to dig out for you. That, as you rightly pointed out, is a huge number. In a small country, such people can influence Malaysian foreign policy and domestic policy. Malaysia is a strange country with a large Chinese, ethnic and Indian population. The two populations don't necessarily mix and merge, but they have a certain coexistence. Therefore, Malaysia is subjected to pulls and pushes depending also upon the composition of its population from China and India and depending on the pressures put on it from China or India. So when it is going through a relatively stable phase as now under Anwar Ibrahim, they try to balance it out. But of course, let us not forget that as far as the South China Sea is concerned, or as far as support to Philippines is concerned with regard to its struggle against China, the Malaysians have been neutral for reasons which the Malaysians know best. But certainly, the fact that he's coming here, inking agreements, putting his hand out in friendship is something which is extremely significant, and I would say will stand us in good stead when they take over the chairmanship next year.
Okay, let me in fact quickly take that across to Professor Nalapat as well. Professor Nalapat, you were telling us, of course, earlier you're bullish for this visit by the PM of Malaysia to India. Which avenues and aspects you believe of our relationship are going to get a fillip during this bilateral meeting?
Look, both sides gained during this visit, not just a single side. And we will be discussing all the aspects, I'm very, very certain. And I'm sure there'll be agreement on practically all the aspects. Malaysia has long been a partner of India. India is well represented in Malaysia. Malaysia is well represented in India. And that is a fact of life. And so I'd simply like to point out that there don't need to be any apprehensions on that particular score. And I'd also like to say that as far as our relationship is concerned, as far as Prime Minister Ibrahim is concerned, the fact that he has come here, I don't think the Chinese will be liking that very much at all. They wouldn't be liking it at all. But he has come here. And that is a clear sign Malaysia has an independent foreign policy. And may I point out regarding the Philippines, Joe Biden's administration is riddled with Sino-Wahhabi elements. You can see the kind of vicious attack on Prime Minister Modi and on India by these Sino-Wahhabi, useful idiots or whatever in the Biden establishment. Given that kind of an unreliable establishment, what choice do the other countries in ASEAN have? Do they have a US with spine? Under Joe Biden, no. I hope under President Harris or President Trump, there will be a spine, that the US will have a spine. Under Joe Biden, that spine is made it's just made of rubber. Thank you, Uday.
All right. Yes. Let me, in fact, quickly take that across to Major General Katoch now for a closing comment. Your last word, Major General Katoch, on where this relationship is headed now.
Uday, I think this is going to be a very positive, this visit will have very positive outcomes. I think, as had been mentioned, I think by Ambassador Mukherjee right in the beginning, the optics is also very important, and the optics of this visit will go around, will send a very positive vibe and image. So, beside the optics, yes, there will certainly be agreements on trade. There will be agreements on investment in India,
yes, and
on the Malaysian side.
Yes, yes.
And I think there will be a lot of talk as to how we are going to handle, when we are looking at regional developments. The two issues of both Bangladesh and Myanmar are going to come up for discussions. They may not come out in the public domain, but I think the concerns of both the countries as to what is happening there will come out. And there will be some talk as how it can be jointly addressed.
Okay, so the turbulent issues of our neighborhood likely to come up. Interestingly, can we couple together this visit by the Malaysian PM to the Japanese, foreign minister's visit as well, Ambassador Mukherjee? Clearly, of course, this Asia approach is working of our nation. I think the Japanese, India-Japan 2+2 expected sometime tomorrow as well.
Indeed, I would put that at a much higher level than the Malaysian Prime Minister's visit. Japan and India have an extremely important strategic partnership, and Japan and India actually are the two poles to control an aggressive China just as much as Quad. Moreover, the Japanese are prepared to invest heavily in India, in India's economy, in the sectors that matter to us. They have been extremely supportive, and I think that the relationship and partnership is going from strength to strength. I do hope that the election of the new Japanese Prime Minister is not going to cause any problems for us. I somehow doubt it. They seem to change Prime Ministers very, very fast in Japan, unfortunately, which makes it difficult for countries like India to, you build up partnerships with a foreign leader and then he gets changed. But we've always managed because the core parameters of the relationship between India and Japan are very strong. There is no comparison between India, Malaysia and India, Japan. India, Japan, for us is a partnership of today, of tomorrow, of the future, and of the future of this region and of Indo-Pacific. So I would put the greatest amount of importance.
Yes, yes, Surinder Lali.
I mean, just to add to that, because these K elements jokers, as much as they keep making the wrong noises from Canada, Malaysia has a population of almost 100,000 Sikhs with 119 gurdwaras, and amongst the most successful Indian stories, Sikhs are some of the most successful Indian entrepreneurs there. They control a lot of rubber plantation and other businesses too. So I just wanted to get this also.
Okay. Also, Professor Nalapat, the turbulent aspects of our neighborhood, Bangladesh, Myanmar situation expected to come up as well, is what Major General Katoch indicated. Do you agree?
Well, I'd like to say that Malaysia has a problem of radicalism, and unfortunately for some time, some Malaysian leaders fanned that for narrow political interests. I mean, that's always happened. That's sometimes political leadership falls into a trap of fanning extremists for political reasons. I don't believe Anwar Ibrahim is going to fall into that trap. He knows the danger that Wahhabism represents to Islam, to Sunni Islam. He knows that danger very well, and he is against it. And I do not believe that he is going to support any kind of extremism or any kind of, frankly, he is not going to support any anti-India activity. So that is, he wants a good relationship with India. We want a good relationship with Malaysia. And I'm sure both governments will be very clear that they will not permit their soil to be used against the other country in any way, Uday.
All right, let's leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion.
For more such videos, Subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.